When I first came here, when I entered the freedom from torture doors, it was a dark period of my life. The first thing I saw was flowers in the reception area and the fountain of water running. That alone made me feel a bit lighter because I love green plants. Where I was born and grew up, I grew up on a farm. So when I saw my therapist, she said, I know where you would love to be in the gardening group. I think nature speaks to us. And I think nature, it has got natural healing things in it. And then looking at anything that grows from the soil and thinking that thing is not just grown, it came from the dark earth, but it had life in it. So it fought all that gravity and came out. So I love nature. It helped me to come out of all the things that I was submerged with, a lot of dirt, weeds, to say trauma, torture, all those things. But those things were a part of my life. But they were all pruned away, taken away from my life. One by one, I began to feel lighter from like that dark soil. It came out, it began to see the sun, smell things, the rain coming down, soaking it. It began to enjoy its life. That's why we see so many beautiful flowers. It's a healing thing. It heals me.
Horticultural therapy is a really good intervention, partly because it doesn't rely so much on words. You're there in the moment, you're working with plants. We will usually start with a sensory walk around the gardens, having a look at all the plants, noticing them, smelling them, tasting them if necessary, if they're edible. And those can trigger all sorts of conversations about what those plants mean to people. But what is clear is that all of them, if it's done right, seem to kind of get calmness as a result of being in the garden, even if it's just a moment.
The main inspiration for the Freedom from Torture garden was through visiting the headquarters, seeing the horticultural therapy in practice. And it's a garden of memories. After speaking to the survivors, they were nostalgic for their homelands, for whether it's the flora, the food, and by giving them a space evocative of happier places, happier times, it helps ground them in their new place of abode.
We are very much looking at plants that are adapted to drought-tolerant, low-fertility soils. So these are truly survivors of the horticultural world. Tough, woody, long-lived plants through to tiny little self-seeders. Again, all long-term survivors in hostile environments that will be seen at various stages of growth throughout the garden. We will have drifts of Nigella sativa, which is the edible Nigella seed, which again links back to many of the survivors' culinary cultures and what they might be putting in food. So this will be an edible in the garden, but it will self-seed everywhere. So this plant is capable of reproducing 2-3 times a year, and that's how that plant survives in these difficult environments. So this looks like a fantastic example of the naturalistic ecological planting that we're taking to the show. How are you achieving this, Emily?
Yeah, so basically I've gone out into our gravel garden and this is how it would look just seeded around. So basically I've just scooped it up and popped it in a tray, and this tray will be planted in the garden so that it looks, so it's been there forever really.
The garden is designed as a place where survivors can undertake therapy. It might be on a one-on-one basis, it might be with a family member or a friend, and towards the end of the path you have a sunken communal seating area where you can build your community, you can share recipes, you can harvest plants and edibles from within the space, and then you get to sit around a communal oven and break bread from cultures worldwide.
It makes such sense for us to have a garden at Chelsea. Having gardens that are resilient and gardens that have plants that survive in tough environments. And that's such a fantastic metaphor for our client group. that fits so nicely with the ethos.